Now, what I did, though, while my phone was out of commission, is I switched back to an iPhone 6S that I bought 3 or 4 years ago now, because this is the spare phone we have in the house. So my phone strategy here is that I get the new phone, my wife gets my old phone, and then the phone she's using becomes the spare. So this iPhone 6S has been around the block and back again, and it's been sitting in a drawer basically. And part of my reason for getting the iPhone 10 fixed so quickly was that I felt like this would not work as well for me, given that it is a phone now 2 generations behind or whatever. And to be honest with you, there was not much of a usability difference between my 6S and my 10. In fact, there were some things that I preferred going back to the old phone. One, namely, is the fingerprint sensor versus Face ID. And there's a couple of areas where having to put the phone up to your face is very inconvenient, especially when I want to listen to Audible. Usually what I do with my phone is I summon the person inside the phone, say, hey, you know what? Launch Audible. And on the iPhone 6S, I can just put my finger on the phone while I'm driving, and I have to look down at it, and it unlocks the phone and switches to the app. iPhone 10, not the same thing. You can't really do that because you have to hold the phone up to your face even to launch an app while the phone is locked. And that was one thing that really was bugging me with the 10, and I kind of liked not having to deal with that when I was using the 6S. The other thing, though, just from a standard functionality standpoint, the 6S felt fine. It wasn't too slow. It was loading up all the apps that I used throughout the day. The only big difference was the camera. The camera, of course, is much better on the 10, but in good light, the 6S camera is just fine. It even shoots 4K at 30 frames per second, and it's a darn good phone. It was a good phone when it came out, and it's still a good phone now. Apple still actually sells this phone, and I think if you've been thinking about upgrading, is it really a big jump going from a 6S to an 8 or a 10? You know, it really isn't from a standard usability standpoint. I would recommend maybe if you've had that 6S for a couple of years to get the battery replacement service before that expires. It's $29 to get the battery replaced because this 6S, because it had sat in a drawer for a while and completely discharged, I got this warning up when my battery ran low. Remember how Apple was under siege because their phones were slowing down the older they got? Well, this phone is dealing with that issue. So what happened is that the battery was draining very quickly, and then when it got down to like 20%, it just shut off because it was not able to provide enough power for whatever the phone was doing. So it put itself into this low-powered mode. Now, you can turn this off now if you want, but again, when you get down to 20%, the phone will shut down again. But even in that low-powered mode, it didn't feel all that bad. So I'm going to go get that battery repaired because it's only $30, and I'll probably just keep hanging on to that phone until maybe the next round of phones comes out. But it's funny, back a couple of years ago, it was a big jump going from a 4 to a 6 or a 6S, but the jump from the 6S now 3 generations up isn't that much of a jump, and I'm going to guess that the next round of iPhones will only be very incremental as well. I think we've kind of hit kind of the potential of the current batch of technology here, and I think there's going to be some time before we see a huge jump in performance that makes a 6S obsolete after 3 years, because this phone clearly is still very, very capable, and it was a pleasure to use it, even though it wasn't as flashy as my flagship iPhone 10.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters Chris Allegretta, the 4 Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, Bill Reiner, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.